Hey, what's up, everyone? This is
And
Vicente.
this is Izzy.
Welcome back to the IB podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, we are finally covering the entire Spider-Man franchise. As you can see in my human spider outfit, I wore this for the No Way Home premiere. We're going to cover the Tobey Maguire trilogy, the Andrew Garfield movies, the Tom Holland trilogy, and of course the Spider-Verse movies.
Yep, we are super excited to be covering this series and the franchise in general because it's one of our personal favorite movies, especially yours.
Yes, I'm just going to say it right now, Tobey Maguire is my favorite Spider-Man, but I love Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland too. I don't hate any of them, and if you hate any single version of Spider-Man, why? All of them do a unique take on the character of Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
For me, Tobey Maguire is my favorite, but if I had to choose a Spider-Man I grew up watching, it would be Tom Holland.
Yeah, and I love Tom Holland. Don't get me wrong. I think he's probably one of the most comic accurate Spider-Mans alongside Andrew Garfield. But it's just something about Tobey Maguire that was very special the first time we seen him. I know people credit Superman, the Blade movies, and the X-Men movies for paving the way for comic book movies that we know now. But I'm going to be honest, it was Tobey Maguire that laid a foundation. It made the most money out of any comic book movie ever made, and I'm going to say it. If that first movie wasn't successful, I don't think we would have gotten the MCU as we know today.
Yeah, which I think is kind of crazy to think about. And also with the Tobey Maguire movie, I think it really brought like the kid audience whenever it came to superhero movies in general.
Oh yeah, this movie does kind of suffer from like cheesy dialogue and cheesy scenes. It falls into that early 2000 atmosphere, but you know what? I still love it. I still have a good time. And not only does the first movie blow expectations, it introduces who I would say is arguably the top 10 most badass and memorable cinema villains of all time.
Oh, for sure. And I think just the movie in general is just such a movie just to put on in the background and watch. It is such an enjoyable story.
Yeah, and I know my mom and my parents listen to this podcast, but Mom, if you listen to this, I just want to thank you for taking me to see this for my birthday. Oh, by the way, it's my birthday today. Yeah, so this movie means a lot to me, this first one specifically, because this is the first movie I remember watching as a kid in the movie theater. And, my parents bought me a stuffed Tobey Maguire Spider-Man plush, and I was just in love with it. And even though Spider-Man 2 is my favorite Spider-Man movie, the first movie I hold so close to my heart. So, Mom and Dad, thank you for taking me to go see this movie when I was younger. It honestly means the world to me. You guys have put on a Spider-Man cartoon when I was younger. You guys bought me all the Spider-Man toys, all the comics, and honestly, I relate to the character of Peter Parker himself. And that's just so interesting about this movie too, and just the character of Spider-Man himself, is that you expect like heroes to be like older people, just like to have their shit together. But Peter Parker is a kid, or he's just a normal dude like everyone else. He's not rich. He doesn't have the coolest car, the coolest house, or anything. He's just an average Joe that got bit by a spider. It was just by randomness. Granted, in the comics, they kind of retconned it and said that he was always meant to be Spider-Man because the whole web of destiny. But to me, I hate that. I don't like it. I like that it was just by fate that he was chosen to be Spider-Man. So, Izzy, before we get into our positives and negatives, what else do you want to say about this movie?
I mean, this movie is just, I didn't watch it until after I met you, but I want to say the first time I watched it, I really enjoyed it for being like a first time Tobey Maguire movie. And it's become one of my favorites.
Yeah, and my mom, and quick little story. So when No Way Home came out, we took my mom to go see it, and my mom was kind of hesitant because she says this, and she'll tell you herself. Tobey Maguire is the only Spider-Man she likes, and that's the true Spider-Man, and that's just her opinion. Don't come after people that just prefer one version, and that's fine. As long as you're not hating on every version or just one in particular, it's perfectly okay to have a favorite version. But anyway, we took her to go see No Way Home, and Izzy remembers as well. She was kind of confused at first, but then she picked because she's never seen any of the other Spider-Man movies besides the Tobey Maguire trilogy. But the minute Doc Ock appeared, Izzy says, "Look at your mom's face," and my mom had the biggest smile. She knew who Doc Ock was, because for Spider-Man 2, and then we see Green Goblin, and my mom was like, had this big smile on her face because she knew why I wanted to take her to this movie. And then we see Sandman for Spider-Man 3, and I think my mom kind of remembered him. I know she likes the first two movies the best. And then the minute Tobey Maguire appears in No Way Home, Izzy says, "Babe, go look at your mom right now." And my mom just looked shocked, but it was more of like a happy shock, you know? And so I took my mom to go see this movie, and now she knows why. Was because she took me to see the Tobey Maguire trilogy when I was a kid. And so in a way, I wanted to take her, you know, because we grew up. I grew up with this trilogy along with people our age, me and Izzy's age. I grew up with Tobey Maguire, and you know, he's probably, if you ask anyone in our age group, they're going to say that Tobey Maguire was our introduction to the world of Spider-Man, Marvel, and just comics in general.
Yeah, and watching his mom's face watch this movie was such a sweet moment, especially between mom and son.
Yeah, and then, you know, my mom had a smile on her face. You know, she's like, now I know why you wanted me to see this one. Yeah, you took me to go see the Tobey movies when I was younger. It's only right I take you when he comes back.
Yeah.
Now, will I take her to go see Secret Wars if Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire come back and have a reunion? Probably. You know, but she doesn't. My mom isn't really the biggest superhero fan. I mean, yeah, she likes the Batman movies and Tobey Maguire movies, but she's not really a big superhero fan in general. She'll watch them here and there. You know, if I come over and visit, but other than that, she couldn't really care.
Yeah, I think it'd be really a nice moment between you and your mom to go watch them.
Yeah, you know, and I remember she looked a little happy and sad. I asked her, like, Mom, what's wrong? She's like, nothing, just seeing that movie and Tobey Maguire come back. It reminded her when I was younger.
Yeah.
You know, she took me, and now I'm taking her to see the return of Tobey Maguire. So it was a special moment. And then I showed my dad, and my dad, you know, my dad does show emotions, and my dad was happy to see Tobey Maguire back. He was like, oh, shoot. Like, he recognized him, you know, and he recognized all the villains. So, yeah, anyways. And that's how much of an impact Tobey Maguire made the first time he came as Spider-Man. You know, he was just special. You know, fun facts, and Izzy doesn't know this. There were some original actors for Spider-Man, one of them being Leonardo DiCaprio.
Really?
Yeah, so back in the 80s, they were trying to make a Spider-Man movie in the 80s and 90s, and the only one that ever got close was going to be made by James Cameron, and it was going to have Arnold Schwarzenegger as Doc Ock and Leonardo DiCaprio as Spider-Man. Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger as Doc Ock wouldn't work. And so the character of Spider-Man went through development hell and went through 20th Century Fox, and that movie with James Cameron was going to be rated R, you know, for vulgar language, sex scenes, and just very stupid stuff that doesn't work in a Spider-Man movie. So I'm glad that never happened. But I think one of the biggest things was that James Franco was almost Spider-Man. He was going to be, he was almost Spider-Man, but the producers liked him so much that they gave him the role of Harry Osborn.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. And then the actor Chris Klein, he played Oz in the American Pie movies. He was almost Peter Parker, too. But I can't see that because he has too much of that, you know, handsome, charisma, personality. Where with Peter Parker, the character himself, yes, he's a handsome dude, but he's like kind of an outcast. You know, he's socially awkward. And so Tobey Maguire fits that character, that version of Peter Parker just so perfectly. You know, people say, oh, he has a punchable face. Well, that's kind of the character of Peter Parker himself, is that he gets bullied and everything. Yeah. And now, you ready for the crazy facts before we get into our positives and negatives? Who do you think was going to be casted as a Green Goblin? I'll tell you 3 choices, but just take 3 guesses.
Okay. What are the 3 choices?
No, just choose.
Oh, okay. Maybe, I don't know, Ryan Reynolds?
As Green Goblin? Hell no.
I don't know.
Okay, so the 3 actors that almost came close was Nicolas Cage, Jack Nicholson, and I think Jim Carrey.
Oh, I think I've heard about
Jim Carrey. Yeah. I think, but honestly, John Travolta. He was almost Green Goblin. That would have been weird, because William Dafoe, which we'll talk about in our positives, fucking kills it as Green Goblin. I would say he's up there in top 10, like, cinema villains performances of all time.
Oh, for sure. Green Goblin is, like, one of my favorite villains when it comes to the Spider-Man franchise.
Yeah, William Dafoe, and then I'm so happy he comes back in No Way Home and just fucking takes it up the park. You thought he was good in this movie? When we cover No Way Home, oh, dude, he fucking takes it up a notch. All right, Izzy, what would you rate this movie before we finally get into our positives and negatives?
I think I would rate this movie probably about 8 out of 10.
Oh, I'm giving it a 9.5 out of 10. I mean, yeah, like, the negatives prevent it from being a 10, but you know what? This movie's still damn near perfect. I'm going to say it. I think it's the best superhero origin film of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Batman Begins was pretty good, and so was
Mhm.
Iron Man, but this really laid a foundation of what those movies become.
Yeah, that is true. I feel like it sets up the franchise a lot.
All right, and without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into our positives and negatives. So, starting off with the first positive, the opening title card and the theme. So, the theme of this movie was composed by Danny Elfman, and everyone knows the Tobey Maguire theme so close to heart. We can't play it because,
Mhm.
copyright.
Yeah.
But the opening title card for this movie, it lets you know what type of movie this is going to be. An action, adventure, just
Mhm.
full of wonder, and it's fucking awesome. And then you see, like, all the names of the cast and crew and webs. Oh, it's awesome.
Oh yeah, and I think the art that they chose for it is great. And even though it is a little long for my taste, I think it's really enjoyable. It sets up the entire movie with the theme and the names. It's great.
Yeah, and then like you see little snippets
Mhm.
of the Green Goblin costume, the Spider-Man costume, and it's oh my god, just I can hear that theme right now. I really wish we could play it, but YouTube doesn't like music being played because copyright.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone knows the Tobey Maguire theme by heart, and I love it. I would say that's probably one of the most iconic superhero themes in cinema.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely memorable.
Yeah, and I remember when No Way Home was going to come out, people wanted the Tobey Maguire theme to play in the intro, and as much as I would love that, I think it would have taken me out of the movie.
Yeah, though I mean, I feel like they should have done like a combination of all of them. I think that would have been really cool.
Yeah, but what I most like about the opening title card is that it feels like it's coming out of a comic book, and I love that. Yeah, is it cheesy for its time? Sure, but this is early 2000s. Things were cheesy back then, especially with the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. But this movie did it in a way to where it feels like it's a comic book coming to life.
Oh yeah, and I think it definitely sets up the tone for the movie overall.
Yep. And now moving on with our second positive, Tobey Maguire. Now listen, I know Tobey Maguire isn't the most comic accurate. When it comes to Peter Parker, I would say he's damn near fucking good. He's perfect. He knows his science stuff, When he's talking to Norman Osborn, to Otto Octavius, as Spider-Man 2, he knows his shit. You can believe that he's a school nerd. His version of Spider-Man, it's okay. Just because I know Spider-Man isn't really much of a jokester, but he will say quips, in the heat of the battle. And he says it just because he's not trying to show his enemy that he's scared. But, Tobey Maguire, I would just say he's iconic. I don't know what else to say. He's most of our childhood Spider-Man.
Yeah. For me, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, for being late to game of watching him, I think he did an amazing job. I agree. He plays the role of Peter Parker 100% great, and especially is a lot more comic accurate compared to the other two. First, I think he also plays a really good Spider-Man myself. He just plays with the quips and with the fight scenes. For being as like the nerdy kid, plays a great superhero.
Oh yeah, and that's where it goes back to people say, "Oh, he has a punchable face." Well, yeah, that's the point of Peter Parker. He gets bullied.
Yeah.
And then people make fun of Tobey Maguire having such an ugly crying face. Well, who looks pretty when they cry? It makes it look believable. And so Tobey Maguire, like I said, I would say he is Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland are Spider-Man too. But for me, Tobey Maguire is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Granted, his Spider-Man may not quip a lot and joke around a lot, but what I love, what this whole trilogy does, and what Tobey Maguire does too, because he's a damn good actor, is that they give us a human side of Peter Parker. And I was talking to my primo, Peter. Peter, what's up, man? Is that what I like about this trilogy is that they do what not a lot of hero trilogies do, and that's give us a human side to the hero that we love. Captain America, Iron Man, and even Batman from the Dark Knight trilogy, yeah, we see their human side and it's cool. But I don't think it's really up to par when it comes to Tobey Maguire's human side as Peter Parker. He just does a good job and he's relatable. I tell Izzy that whenever I rewatch Spider-Man 2, when I watched Spider-Man 2 as a kid and the first Spider-Man movie, yeah, I love it because it's like, yeah, superheroes. But when I rewatch it as an adult, I just relate to a lot of things with it. With responsibilities, with bills, just anything.
Yeah, it makes having a relatable character of Tobey Maguire in the movies, it just makes the movies that much better for me because I can say, hey, I actually know how that feels and how what he's going through in his emotions, which I think is a great thing to connect in a movie.
Yeah, and let's be honest, none of us are gonna relate to Bruce Wayne. I mean, yeah, maybe some human side, but we're not billionaires like Bruce Wayne or Tony Stark. We're not super soldiers like Captain America. We're all like Peter Parker, just a human dude, an average Joe.
Yep, exactly.
All right, and number 3 on our positive list, this cast is damn near perfect. You got J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. He is perfect. That's the best. That's the number one casting in any comic book movie. He's literally, whenever I read a Spider-Man comic and J. Jonah Jameson comes up, I read it in his voice.
Oh, for sure. I'm so glad that they've kept him through almost all of the Spider-Man movies. It's one of the best things when you watch his movies, because I love his acting as well.
Yeah, and me and Izzy were talking about it because we were rewatching the first Spider-Man movie before we made this episode, was that this had the best Uncle Ben and Aunt May. And I told Izzy, the minute Rosemary Harris, she plays Aunt May, the minute she passes away, I'm going to fucking cry. Because to me, that's Aunt May. That's my Aunt May. You know, I feel like she's my Aunt May. And then, the actor for Uncle Ben, he passed away, unfortunately, a couple years ago. Aww. But I love him. Uncle Ben is like that father figure everyone wishes they had.
Exactly. Those two are my Aunt May and Uncle Ben forever. Like, I mean, the other Aunt Mays are great, but those are the two that I picture in my head myself.
Yeah, and even like down to the side characters, like Flash Thompson, the Oscorp employees, and the Daily Bugle employees, like Betty Brant and J. Jonah Jameson's assistant. I forgot his name. But everyone, like I said, even the character of Robbie, J. Jonah Jameson's friend and assistant, everyone's just so perfectly cast in this movie. I don't think there's one casting in this whole trilogy that I never really hated, besides maybe Topher Grace as Venom. Not that I hate it, but we're going to talk about that more when we finally reach Spider-Man 3. But yeah, like I said, everyone just does their job in this movie. And, James Franco as Harry Osborn, in this whole trilogy, specifically in this movie, we see him become best friends, then tensions, then enemies. And I think that Harry Osborn in this whole trilogy probably has the best character evolution arc in this whole franchise.
Oh yeah, I didn't honestly think about it that way, but and now looking back, I can honestly agree, and I agree that the cast in this movie is great. There's nobody that I think should be replaced. I think they all did an amazing job.
Yeah, and despite what James Franco has done with his criminal history, like, yeah, it sucks what he did and stuff, but you can't deny that he was a really good Harry Osborn.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, they tried with the Amazing Spider-Man series, never really worked out. I mean, they might do it for the Tom Holland trilogy, but for me, when I think of Harry Osborn, I do think of James Franco.
Oh, yeah.
And we haven't even talked about the big bad of this movie, and that's going to lead us into our fourth positive, William Dafoe as the Green Goblin. Holy shit. Now, the director of this whole trilogy, Sam Raimi, his best work being Evil Dead, the entire franchise, he brings a lot of his horror roots to a lot of his villains. But Green Goblin in this movie is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, I think he's one of the best Spider-Man villains that we've seen on screen yet. And I mean, we saw how much that impacted in No Way Home.
Oh, this dude was a fucking monster. The fact that he went to another universe, I'm getting off topic a little bit. The fact that this Green Goblin went to another universe and wanted to fucking conquer it and kill that version of Spider-Man, that goes to show that he hates Spider-Man. And what I love about this character, Green Goblin, the movie version, is that he's just evil. And a lot of cinema villains have some type of human side to them and redemption arc to them, but Green Goblin's just evil. He doesn't care for money. He doesn't care for power. He doesn't care for anything. He just wants chaos. And that's why I probably like the Heath Ledger version of Joker, because it's just chaos and evilness. He's a psycho, And granted, there are some cheesy stuff with Green Goblin in this movie when he breaks out of his constraints. When Norman Osborn finally gets the Oz formula, and it makes that it's so stupid, but it works so perfectly for that era.
Exactly. And I think having him just be insane and not having any real evil backstory, I think that's what makes his villain so great too.
Yeah, in the comics, Norman Osborn is just as much of a fucking douchebag as he is Green Goblin. I'm not going to get into his comic book lore, but yeah, if you think Norman Osborn's a dick in the movies, read his comic book lore. I will say this, in the comic books, he made Gwen Stacy have an affair. He made Gwen Stacy cheat on Peter Parker in the comics. Yeah. And you know what's even more fucked up?
No.
Is that Norman Osborn and Gwen Stacy actually had a kid.
Ew.
Well, okay, no. She was pregnant, but when Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin finally killed Gwen Stacy in the comics, she was pregnant with this kid.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of retcon that Marvel did in the comics, which I'm not really a fan of either, because it makes it that much more fucked up.
Yeah.
I liked it more as that Green Goblin just killed her because she was Spider-Man's love.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, but
yeah, but
okay.
William Dafoe, I'm gonna say it right now. I think he's better than Heath Ledger's Joker. Okay, not better by a lot, but they're tied like that.
Oh, for sure.
You know, granted, rest in peace, Heath Ledger. He had one movie, whereas William Dafoe had two movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be honest. I think William Dafoe's a better villain than fucking Thanos.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just because of how evil and just how insane he is, that is how scary he is. And who doesn't want to watch that on screen?
Yeah, I know my brother Victor right now. My brother Victor loves Thanos. You know, and I told him one time that Green Goblin's way better, and he was like, okay, yeah. But think of it like this. Thanos had a little bit of humanity in him. Mm-hmm. He wanted to make the world a better place. What does Green Goblin want? He just wants to watch the world burn, as Alfred told Bruce Wayne in Dark Knight. And so, you know, that's why he's such an amazing villain in the comic book lore and in the movies. He's just chaotic. That's all he wants. And with William Dafoe being such a great actor, he really brings that character to life. And then with No Way Home, I'm very excited to cover that part.
Oh, yeah. William Dafoe was a perfect casting for Green Goblin.
Oh, yeah. And on number 5 on our positive list, the fight scenes in this movie are brutal. Now, they're not as brutal as the fight choreography isn't as brutal as the Blade movies or the Captain America movies. But holy shit, when Spider-Man and Green Goblin fight, they actually feel like two superpowered beings just going at it.
I mean, if you watch the last fight scene in the movie, that fight scene is so brutal. Like,
where Green Goblin is whooping his ass?
Yes.
You would never see, I mean, okay, no, actually, no, you see it in No Way Home, sorry. Yeah, but this one, in the first movie, you see blood coming out. You see fucking Tobey Maguire having blood come out of his mouth, you know, getting the fuck beaten out of him. Yeah, the ass whooping Tom Holland got was pretty bad in No Way Home. But compared to Tobey Maguire took a bomb to the face from Green Goblin in this movie, and he still lived. He was getting thrown around. And like I said, when they're punching each other, you can just feel the impact of it. You know, granted, I love the No Way Home scene with Tom Holland fighting the Green Goblin. But when it comes to just brutality, I just prefer this one. Because it's like I said, you just feel these two superpowered beings just going at it. You feel every punch. You feel every hate and anger towards it.
Yeah, you feel the intensity of the fight between them.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Izzy. Yeah, it's brutal as hell. You know, and I remember the first time Izzy watched this movie, she was like, what the fuck? Because it's something that you would never really see in this movie. And it's in superhero movies today. Yeah, you kind of get away with it. But back then, this is something like, holy shit, because we're seeing heroes that we love just getting fucking destroyed by the villain.
Yeah, it wasn't something I was expecting when I first watched this movie.
Oh yeah, but you know, they just give it their all in this movie. Every fight scene they have is just awesome. Oh, another thing I want to add about William Dafoe's Green Goblin is that he has a lot of good like quotes in this movie. A scene that I love in the Spider-Man movie is when he kidnaps Peter Parker, or he doesn't know he's Spider-Man yet, and he tells him that you're an amazing hero, but one day the city of New York is going to outcast you. They're going to hunt you down. And that's reality too. You know, that's the message, is that no matter how much good you do in this world, the minute you fuck up, people are going to want your head. So, you know, that's what I love about this Green Goblin, is that not only is he a psycho, he's telling Peter that one day the city of New York will hate you, and then they're going to want to kill you.
And the fact that you actually see that in the movie is pretty...
Yeah, most notably in Spider-Man 2, you see the city of New York start to turn against them. And that's what I love about this trilogy, is that they play around with that idea too. So yeah, that's just another thing I want to add for the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
All right. And number 6 is that this movie defined the whole superhero genre. Like we said, you can make an argument that Blade, the X-Men movies, the first one, and the original Superman movie paved way for comic book movies. And that may be true. But as far as starting up the MCU, I would say this one really jumpstarted everything.
Oh, for sure. I feel like this was the first movie that really had a good range of audience, and so that's why it's a good first movie for the MCU, even though it was added years later.
Yeah, and I would say this movie with No Way Home, I would say that this is technically connected to the MCU.
Oh yeah.
At the time, we had no idea how big this movie was going to get, or how big Marvel was going to get. We had no idea. We're not time travelers.
Yeah.
But this movie laid out a lot of the foundations, and a lot of comic book movies try to simulate what the first Spider-Man did.
Mm-hmm.
Most notably, the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. It tried to have that, fancy, sky high action adventure. But this movie literally defined that superhero genre. And like I said, and I will die on this hill, if this movie never succeeded at the box office and just was a failure, I don't think that the MCU and the DC universe would just never exist.
Yeah, because I feel like this movie really got the superhero genre started, and like people actually wanting to know about these superheroes and these comic books that some kids were reading, but not everybody. So
yeah, and does it suck that I wish Tobey Maguire was in the first Avengers movie? I do. But I also wish back then that Andrew Garfield was part of the first Avengers movie. I thought that was a plan, but I'm happy that we're finally going to see Tobey Maguire with the other Avengers for Kang Dynasty, maybe, but most notably probably for Secret Wars. We're going to see everyone together. But yeah, just you can't argue that Tobey Maguire isn't the OG. It's because of him we have this whole MCU. It laid a foundation, and you may disagree, and that's fine, but you can't deny that Tobey Maguire did pave way for a lot of stuff.
Oh, for sure. So we ready for our next one?
Yep. And so our final positive is the message, the message that this movie leaves, and throughout the trilogy. Now, what I mean by that is that this is what I love about the filmmaking of Sam Raimi, is that in this trilogy, he leaves a message.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to get into the second and third one until we cover those.
Yeah.
But the first movie, you could basically just say the first movie is all about with great power comes great responsibility. Think about it. This is Peter Parker's origin story as Spider-Man, and Uncle Ben tells him that quote, with great power comes great responsibility. Mm-hmm. You have these powers, but it's up to you to decide who you want to be in life. And fun fact, people think that with great power comes great responsibility was said by Uncle Ben. That's actually just a movie thing. And the comics, I think Peter Parker heard it on TV or something. He heard it from a stranger, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for people that don't know. Mm-hmm. So yeah, because people say, oh, Uncle Ben said that quote. Yeah, in the movie, but in the comics, Peter Parker heard it by a stranger.
Oh, wow.
But I think he heard it as, with great power, there must come great responsibility. But, I think I like it better hearing it from Uncle Ben, because that's his father figure. And then Peter starts to get greedy with his powers because he wants money to buy a car for Mary Jane. Yeah. And then because of it, he never gets paid for the car. Or he doesn't get paid in full for the wrestling match. He only gets paid $100. Mm-hmm. And then because of his selfishness, he lets Sir Robert go, and it ends up getting his Uncle Ben killed. And Green Goblin throughout the movie is telling him, just give up, be evil. Mm-hmm. And so I like the message it leaves that with great power comes great responsibility. And it just doesn't have to be powers. It can just be just in life in general. If you have the power to change for the good, for the greater good, you should do it. And honestly, I can't wait to discuss more about the second movie message and the third movie message, because the first one's just kind of plain and simple, should you be good or should you be evil? And you should always do the right thing.
Yeah, and I think watching this movie as his origin story, I think it's great that it sets out his base origin and the way that everything connects. So yeah,
and that's gonna do for our positive list. And now, unfortunately, we do have one negative, and it's not really like a big negative. It's just kind of like what I mentioned earlier, is that the dialogue in this movie and some of the scenes are just cheesy as hell. It hasn't really aged well. Yeah. And so a scene in this movie that is kind of cheesy to me, it's like, that's kind of dumb, is when Green Goblin attacks the Mayday parade and stuff, and then the cops tell him freeze, and he's like, oh, I surrender. It's just so stupid. The dialogue's kind of whack.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of cheesy, but I think it fits for the era, so it's not so much a negative. It's more of a mixed thing.
Yeah, like I said, it's just a small negative. It doesn't really ruin the entire movie.
No.
Ruin the entire movie for me. It just, there's a lot, Norman breaking out of his constraints. That was always a little cheesy, especially the face he makes and just some of the dialogue. And another thing too is that when Peter Parker uses his webs and throws a lunch tray at Flash Thompson, or when he's doing flips in the wrestling match, it's like, okay, when Spider-Man finally appears, how the fuck does no one not know that he's Spider-Man?
Yeah, common sense, people.
Yeah, like if I was in that school and I saw that he had webs coming out of him, and all of a sudden the Spider-Man dude came out of nowhere, I'm gonna know who it is.
Exactly. Or everybody at the wrestling match when he uses his webs to hop on top of the cage.
Yeah, you know, it's like, so when Spider-Man finally comes out, no one knows who it is.
No.
You know, like I said, it's just a small negative. It doesn't really ruin the movie for me, but they could have just altered those scenes a little bit to where it could have been believable that no one would suspect that he was Spider-Man.
Yeah, but I think it adds some fun into the movie, some humor.
Yeah. You know, and that's going to do it for our Spider-Man 2002 review.
Yep.
Is it the best Spider-Man movie? No, but it's a damn good Spider-Man movie. And I can't wait for next week, because next week is our Spider-Man 2 review. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say it right now, that's my all-time favorite Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm so excited to be diving into this franchise and going over all our thoughts, especially next week because it's your favorite.
Yeah, and I'm letting you guys know, Spider-Man 2, I'm really going to put a lot of heart into. Mm-hmm. I mean, not saying I didn't put heart into this episode, and I will for this entire franchise because I do love Spider-Man, but Spider-Man 2 is just something I'm really going to hold close to my heart.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why behind it. I don't think Izzy remembers why. You don't remember why I love Spider-Man 2 so much?
Not off the top of my head.
Oh, okay. It'll make you happy, but you'll be a little sad.
Aww.
Yeah. But, you know, as always, take care of each other and take care of yourselves. And this Sunday, don't forget, we're doing our last Sunday Fun Day episode for the month of May. And it's going to be Would You Rather Horror Edition. We already have our questions. I'm very excited, and it's going to be a fun episode on Sunday. But as always, peace out, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Peace out, everyone.
Bye, guys.